Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So in the previous episode, I introduced one of the most important books on this topic of ontology, which is the Lamhāt of Shah Waliullah al-Dahlawī. And I'm going to be using that book predominantly today to talk about his question of being and wujud. So ontology, the question of existence, tries to answer a specific question, and that question is, what is being? And I want you to follow this argument very, very carefully, and hopefully, God willing, it will make sense to you. It's not very long, it's nice and short, but I'll try to get to the heart of the matter. Now, there are definitions that scholars and academics and philosophers offer to try and define what is meaningful in terms of describing the nature of being. So this very term being requires defining first. Now, there's two ways you can define it. One is to use the term being and see it as a verb. So being, wujud, means to be. So it's a verb. A verb is a meaning that it gives of something happening, an action in of itself. It's the act of existence. So when we talk about being in the grammatical sense of it being a verb, we're talking about the act of existence. The second way you can think of it is a simple noun, which basically signifies the object of existence, whether that thing is necessary or possible, actual or potential, substantial, accidental, material, spiritual. We'll talk about these things later on. Now, according to our thinker, Shah Waliullah, being in its most universal, in its most absolute sense, is actually self-subsistent, it's self-evident. And because it's self-evident, it's self-subsistent, it's indefinable. You can't really define it. You can't put it down in words. It's just something that's there. It just exists. It's there as it is, and you're not able to, or you struggle to define it. The reason being is that when we think about this logically, everything that exists in the world, we usually, even though we're not aware we're doing this, we categorize things. So we as humans, being rational beings, we have a habit or a natural endowment about categorizing things. So we put them into genuses, categories, and then we differentiate among themselves. So we have plants, and then we'll say among plants there are different types of plants. There are trees, there are flowers, fauna, and these sort of things. And then there's rocks, and amongst rocks there are different types of rocks. So in other words, we categorize things, and then we go down into particulars. So we go down right to the detail, but we also work our way up and we generalize. So we say it's a tree, it's a plant, so forth, and we work our way up. So as human beings, we have a habit of categorizing things. And one of the reasons we do that is that it helps us to define things. And so Shah Waliullah says that you can't define existence because there's nothing to compare it with. You can't divide it, you can't chop it, you can't particularize it. So it's just self-evident. Existence for Shah Waliullah is something that is self-evident, because everything else we know through categorization. So there's nothing similar or opposite to being in comparison to how we come to know of it. We only know things when it's brought into a relation with external realities. So being is not merely an idea or imaginative invention, as some people would believe, but it establishes reality in relation to particular things, which are in turn determinations and particularizations. The way you think of this is that if you look around you, if you were to categorize everything, put them into groups, and then categorize them again and again and again, you'd get to a level where you get to existence. Everything exists, there's a being to it. So the human mind, our mind, when it ponders on particular realities, we come to discover that there's a universal being by way of abstraction. So for example, if I was to think about a human being, that's why we call them human being. And then we say, well, what's the next level up? We say, well, he's an animal. But it's a particular type of animal because he's a rational animal. So humans, cats, dogs, horses would all be categorized as animals. But how do we define and differentiate between them? So humans are rational as opposed to horses, who are also animals, but they are not rational in the way human beings are. So we've divided them from the category of animals. And if you kept on doing this and you kept on abstracting, you'd get to what's called being and existence. So being is a form of abstraction where it captures everything. It's there, it's transcendental, it's above everything that exists. And Shah Waliullah himself, he says in his Lamhāt, that the truth is that just as you see Zayd and you see someone called Umar, you see both of these people, you abstract that they are both men. So you abstract a category called man from them. And the cause of this abstraction is present in both of them, which is humanity. You say, well, what's common between Zayd and Umar? And you will say, well, they are both human beings. Similarly, if you see a man and then you see a horse, you abstract animality from them. So you say, well, what's common between a horse and a man? And you say, well, they're both animals. So can you see, you've moved from Zayd and Umar, from human to human beings. From there, you move to a horse and a human being, and you said, well, what differentiates them, or what unites both of them rather, is that they are both animals. And so when you ponder the essences all together and you abstract being, you see that there is existence, there's a beingness to all of them. Everything has wujud, everything has existence, which is like it's just there, it's obvious. A human being exists because it's obvious, and you don't need to categorize being or wujud. So all realities, according to our thinker Shah Waliullah al-Dahlawī, are encompassed by existence, by this idea of wujud. And all particular beings, whether it's a human, the horse, whatever it may be, in whatever form they are submerged in what I would say the ocean of being. So everything shares in this wujud or beingness, if you like. And as human beings, if you were to watch this video and just sit down afterwards and think about it, we are naturally accustomed to know things or differentiate between them on the basis of their various conditions, which are subject to change or motion. So when we categorize things, when we think about things, we think about them in terms of what they change from or what they change to. Or another way we do it is that we differentiate things from one another on the basis of their relationship with other things. So we say a human being. And when we're saying a human being, what we're saying really is that a human being is different to an animal. They're both animals, but a human being in relation to an animal is a rational being. So we do this all the time. We are very rational. It's just that most of us, I would say 99% of humanity, don't think in logical terms like this, but we do it all the time because we are rational. We reason even when we're not completely aware that we're doing that. And so we know that everything comes into existence at one moment and then it disappears at another. So things come and go. A plant is a plant here in front of me. It will come, it will disappear. It still exists, right, for a certain point, and then it will disappear. You'll exist, and at a certain point you'll disappear. But being in of itself doesn't go through change and motion. So everything else, these particular existences, they change, they vary. But being in a whole transcendental self, in the overarching sense, does not change. It's always there in the background. So in a universal sense, it doesn't accept any kind of change or division. It's indivisible. So the first predication of everything is that it exists. This is the bottom line. We know things exist by virtue of their wujud, by virtue of their existence. And so Shah Waliullah himself says that we can't define existence because it's just there in the world out there. In the next video, I'm going to say something different and challenge myself and say, well, actually, even though I've said that wujud or existence or being exists out there and we can't define it, I will now say in the next episode how we can divide it. So even though I've said we can't define it, how do we divide a being? So in the next episode, I'm going to take you on that journey. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.